Today we're going over to Tallahassee, Florida, back on July 18th, 2014. Unraveling the Dan Markel story. On October 9th, 1972, in Toronto, Canada, a little boy was born, and his parents would name him Dan Eric Markel. Dan would grow up and pursue a law degree, and in 2001, he would graduate from Harvard University with a JD degree, a Juris degree. It's the highest level of degree in its given line of work. And this would eventually lead Mr. Markel to become a professor at Florida State University in 2005. Wendy Adelson is believed to be born in Coral Springs, Florida, on April 22nd, 1979, and she too will have a passion for law. In 2006, she would graduate from the University of Miami while practicing law in Washington. Wendy and Markel would meet on a dating website, JDate. While the two were both presumed to be living in DC at the time, Wendy frequented Florida. In 2005, Markel would be offered a tenure track position at FSU. This protected his freedom to teach tailored to his methods and teach on controversial subjects while being protected from the risk of being fired except under extreme conditions. While Wendy was offered a lesser position at FSU, which she accepted as well. February 2nd, 2006 would arrive, the day Wendy Adelson would become Wendy Markel. The couple's parents would agree to split the cost of the Jewish wedding, with Wendy's parents hiring the caterer. Dan would request kosher food for he and his Jewish guests, but to his surprise, the food was not kosher. This would be the least of the couple's problems. Dan's for sure. Approximately 3 years later, they would welcome their first son in 2009 and their second in 2010. Wendy would eventually look to escape Tallahassee, to her a country town that did not give her opportunity to advance in her career, while Markel was thriving in his career, co-publishing a book in 2009. Dan would return home from a business trip to find his wife had left with their two kids on September 10th, 2012, after finding divorce papers. The two would be granted joint custody of the kids, but a judge would rule that they are to reside in Tallahassee. Wendy would file countless appeals in retrospect to past rulings on the kids' living arrangements. On July 31st, 2013, the Markel's divorce was resolved and granted. But this was in no way the end of this messy divorce, with the parents of Dan and Wendy also becoming involved in the absurd behavior. So much so, there was a court date set involving Adelson's mother being able to see the kids on May 15th, 2014. On July 15th, 2014, a green Prius would be rented in North Miami and be used to follow Dan Markel in his final moments, arriving in Tallahassee just past midnight on July 18th. The car would then be seen several places Dan visited, but it was also seen backing out of Markel's garage after someone aimed to shoot him in the head. On July 18th, Dan would take his two sons to daycare around 8:50 a.m. and at 9:12, Markel arrives at Premier Fitness. Around 10:38, he would leave Premier and return home, with the Prius trailing him. Markel is on the phone when he arrives home, and according to the caller, he noticed an unfamiliar face in his driveway. Before gunshots could be heard throughout the neighborhood and muffled sounds or cries through the phone. At 11:02, police would receive the report of a shooting by a concerned neighbor who checked on the injured Markel. In the 911 call, he's heard asking for urgency as Markel was still breathing but unable to speak. The confused dispatcher would miss important information, such as the caller mentioning a possible gunshot several times. And it would take first responders 19 minutes to arrive and render aid, while Tallahassee Memorial Hospital is less than 5 minutes away from Markel's home. He would spend the next 14 hours fighting for his life from two gunshot wounds to the face.